welcome back to the Doctor Who Marathon. I'm your host McEdam, and today we're going to be talking about the 2015 Christmas special, The Husbands of River Song, written by Stephen Moffat and is directed by Douglas McEdam. This story would see the return of beloved Doctor Who character River Song, that first appeared in the 10th Doctor era story, The Silence of the Library and Forest of the Dead, one of Stephen Moffat's most well-regarded and most popular stories that he has ever written for the series, probably just under Blink in terms of like his pure quality of episodes. I mean, you can watch my video about those two episodes in the vlog series if you want to check them out. And it's been very well established that she knows multiple incarnations of the Doctor. This would be her first and only time that she would have an interaction with the 12th Doctor, as of course played by Peter Capaldi. She's had many encounters with the Matt Smith 11th incarnation. However, as this story implies, this would be the only time when she would meet 12, as she doesn't actually know that the Doctor actually has extended his life over the course of 12 regenerations, 12 lives because he used the 10th face twice, and River Song seems to know that. So that also, the story also confirms that she knows she knows about the War Doctor. That's very interesting. This story also introduces Matt Lucas's character Nardole, here introduced as a supporting character, but would later go on in the series as a potential and then go on to be a main companion for the series, as well as guest starring legendary comedian Greg Davis as Hydroflax, as well as Nonos Aronis. I really butchering his name there, I do apologise, as the voice of the body that the Hydroflax uses, and that is just some great casting right there. Now, one of the big issues with the Stephen Moffat era is its Christmas specials. As I've stated in multiple videos regarding the Christmas specials, they always might seem to be my least favourite, especially the last one with the 12th Doctor, Last Christmas, which I just thought was absolutely dreadful. And this would influence the way I thought about this episode going into this, thinking that despite the fact that it was really cool to see River Song, the fact that it was a Christmas special and it seemed to be going back to a much more really heavy focused Christmas special, like in the regards of the Doctor Witch in the Wardrobe and A Christmas Carol, means that I just wasn't looking forward to this episode when it first went into production. It was also around this time that we also knew that Doctor Who would be taking a break for a year, and the next Doctor Who special after this would be a Christmas special, followed in the middle by the spin-off series Class, which we've talked about the first episode before, because that chronologically takes place before this from the 12th Doctor's perspective. But that's beside the point. And so, with that being said, without saying that, is this story any good? Is it worth the reintroduction of Alex Kingston's return as River Song? Or is it another dud in the Christmas special mythology of Doctor Who? Well, it doesn't actually start out that great. We get introduced to Nardole's, played by Matt Lucas, who comes off as this really quirky, almost childlike character who gets introduced to the Doctor because he's looking for a surgeon, and the Doctor, getting all confused and getting all the situation mixed up, basically believes that he's looking for a doctor and the Doctor is the Doctor, so the Doctor gets involved in the situation at hand. And the humour here, the dialogue at the start of the story really fails to grab its audience until we get introduced to River Song, in which this story actually has the very interesting dilemma of River Song doesn't actually know that the 12th Doctor is the 12th Doctor, and the story basically acts as, what if the Doctor was a companion? And there are some really great humorous, really great fun elements to be played with that. And that's where mainly the great humour of this story develops. One of the great bits is when basically the Doctor realises what's going on. Essentially, River Song has basically put herself onto this mission where she is married to King Hydroflax, again, as I stated, played by Greg Davis, who is like, his head is on like this giant magnificent body, and basically he's this ruler of this empire, and basically anybody who like goes against him in any way, shape or form is threatened with death and destruction, and he's basically a ruthless dictator of sorts. And basically, you know, if the Doctor can't save him, you know, he's going to get executed. And he only like, he kind of clicks halfway through when River's doing a speech to all of these people around the world of the Hydroflax Empire, that he's like, you actually think I'm a real surgeon, don't you? At which Nardole starts panicking. And that's some of the great the great beats of the story. Until it's basically revealed that River Song is actually looking for the diamond inside Hydroflax's head, and that she's actually has this kind of bouncy relationship with a lot of characters in the story. I don't know if there's anything hinted with Nardole, but she does have this other character who she also has a very flirtish relationship. I believe they kiss as well at the story. Now, the idea of River Song, you know, it's developed more later on in the story, but right at the start of the first half of the story, we basically come to take care that River Song, outside the Doctor's viewpoint, is a very different character, shall we say. She's very flirtatious, very self-driven. She's very self-motivated in the sense that she can be also a bit selfish, not really taking human lives into consideration. The whole thing with the diamond, she couldn't care less about Hydroflax, whether he's dead or alive. She just wants the diamond that's inside his head. I personally found that this aspect of the character in the story unsufferable to watch. I thought that I do understand why they did it, why Stephen Moffat wrote Alex Kingston's character this way. Like, it's basically developed even more halfway through the episode. But I do feel like it doesn't justify how it's pushed out at the first half of the episode. It makes her feel really unlikable, and makes the Doctor, who sees this side of her and still has this romantic relationship with her by the end of the story, feels really strange and off-putting. I also really don't like the setting of the small village. I thought that the first half of the episode actually looked really corny and looked very stagey in terms of its performance and in terms of its set direction and its props and all that. With the exception of the suit, which actually, essentially, Hydroflax can like take his head off, and his suit, his body, basically is its own sentient thing. Like I said, it's voiced by Nonos Anios. Again, I butchered that name. And there are some really great moments with that robot, some really great threatening moments that makes him actually a really fun villain. It's just a shame that there's not much of him in this episode to justify him as the main antagonist. There's a really great scene where Nardole, he finds the other I'm trying to remember how it goes. Nardole calls out to River Song's boyfriend, that character that she's flirting with, like her companion of sorts, and it's then like you see it like in the car in an alleyway, and it's holding a gun to Nardole's head, which is attached to its body, and it's just like, you will tell me the power where the River Song is. And it also breaks into the TARDIS at one point. Speaking of the TARDIS, this story actually introduces a very important, and one probably one of the most fun elements of Doctor Who, in that, because at this point in the story, River Song doesn't know that the 12th Doctor is the Doctor. She just thinks that he is some sort of just an individual. I would say that, like, in the story, the Doctor gives these clues, and the fact that River Song just doesn't click. I understand, like, it's a joke that, like, the Doctor's like, serious, like, seriously, you didn't get it from that? Yes, I'm like a time traveler. I'm like an adventurer. I'm like a doctor. But the fact that he constantly does it all the time and River Song still doesn't click, it just made River Song at the start felt really, really dumb. But it also leads into probably one of the best scenes in Doctor Who's history, in which every companion has that moment where they get introduced to the TARDIS for the first time. And the Doctor basically putting up the facade that he is a companion, that he is some stranger who doesn't know about time travel and stuff like that, has basically the Doctor's moment of him going inside the TARDIS, and Peter Capaldi absolutely nails his fake excitement. It's like, my God, it's bigger on the inside. This has changed my whole course of reality as I know it. Just a fantastic scene. And from this point on, the story, which is now about halfway through into the adventure, is actually a really great engaging, as we get a really fun moment with River Song has actually liquor inside the TARDIS. There's a really great action scene where Hydroflax's body is chasing after them and actually gets inside the TARDIS. But then the Doctor, realizing that now that they can they can time travel because the body's now in the TARDIS with the head, they actually time travel to where River had set the locations. And this actually becomes the much more fun, great element of the story. And I think from here on, the story kicks up in terms of quality as they get introduced to this really stunning location of this kind of cruise ship for the criminals. Though we don't get a lot of criminal elements in it, it's mainly just said. The set, the design, the costumes of the aliens and the ideas of them. Like, you get this bug guy who's really funny, this kind of waiter character. We have also River trying to sell the jewelry to this kind of like bounty hunter, not bounty hunter, but it's kind of religious part of this like alien cult of some sort, which actually has a much more greater emphasis in the next Doctor Who story, the Return of Doctor Mysterio. These alien race, which kind of like, they have like this split on their face, and they can actually like open up and they can store stuff in their heads. Really cool. But this also leads to some really great dialogue, where the story kind of just takes some breathing moments where you see the Doctor and River, and they talk about like their adventures and stuff, and the Doctor notices that River's still keeping the diary, and River's feeling sad about it, and there's this just great moments here, and it's where this story really highlights, and it actually becomes a really engaging adventure, and this all culminates into a scene in which basically River and the Doctor are about to give the head of Hydroflax, which has this diamond in it, only to be revealed that these people who want the diamond, because this is actually set in the future of the story, which is actually really clever. They actually want the diamond because it's linked to Hydroflax. They are actually part of the Hydroflax like empire in the future, and they're doing this as like a kind of tribute to him. They want like their leader to live out like spiritually and sort. And then it's kind of like the Doctor and River kind of realize that they've kind of messed up really bad here, only for the suit to come in and destroy everything, and the bug like waiter basically is like, River Song knows where to get the greatest head in the human in history, which is the Time Lord known as the Doctor. And Alex Kingston gives this absolutely phenomenal performance where she's stating about like her relationship with the Doctor, and how like you don't expect a son or a god to love you back, and it's like, I don't know where he is, but he's not here. And you could just see the Doctor getting quiet in the background and is trying to comfort her until the final moments when she turns around and she realizes that this is a new incarnation of the Doctor, and the penny drops, and it's absolutely amazing. And we get this really fun action scene where basically, because River basically predetermined the timing of when they arrived on the ship, she basically learned that in the future, at this moment, there'll be a meteor strike that'll be hitting the ship, and so it's like this perfectly well timed plan, and they're trying to get the ship to crash in a way which will save their lives and maybe as as many people as possible. But the ship is crashing onto a nearby planet known as Beryllium. And for those of you yes, Beryllium is a planet that has been mentioned before. It is actually mentioned in River Song's first appearance. There actually was a reference to it before in a Doctor Who short, I think it was last night, or first night, it was one of those two, where we essentially learn that we basically learn here that the Doctor has tried to take River Song to the Singing Towers of Beryllium, but he can't bring himself to do it. This is because, as we learn in her first appearance, that this would actually be the last moments before River Song meets the 10th Doctor in the library. And so the Doctor really just can't bear himself to do it. And there's this really great action scene where they're pushing each other out of the way, trying to save the ship whilst trying to keep the other one out of harm. And it's a great moment, it's a great action piece, but I will say in terms of the narrative, in terms of the story, two big issues come arrive in this. One is mainly for a canonicity sakes. I am not personally keen on the idea of River Song knowing about her fate. They do kind of suggest that River Song knows that the Beryllium would be her final place, and that there are rumours, there are legends, there are myths that the Doctor would take her here and this will be our final encounter. I really didn't like that. It has this kind of like a anti bittersweet where they both know that this would be their last moments, where the tragedy of it is that the Doctor is from technically River's future at this point, and he knows, but she doesn't, and that's where the heartstrings pull, and I don't think that really works here. But in terms of this story as a narrative, it really just takes the focus completely out from the main narrative at hand. The story has this really great emphasis, really great purpose in terms of Hydroflax and these aliens and this giant robot suit that wants to kill anything. But then by the end of this story, the story completely changes focuses to this Beryllium subplot. And though it still has a really great and strong ending, it feels like it's not the ending for this story. The story has nothing until at this point even mentioned Beryllium. It's only until the final moments when they get into the TARDIS and they crash, and basically there is no survivors, but the Doctor uses this gem to get somebody to basically build a massive restaurant on this planet, and he basically sets up the seed for their final night, or at least from his perspective, and I guess from her perspective as well. And it's an absolutely gorgeous moment. It's actually a great way to end the story, but my issue with it is that it's not the ending this story deserves. It's more like the story arc is taken over the main narrative. It has nothing to do with the Hydroflax plot and stuff. It's like, if you weren't so aware of what happens with River Song and all that, the story doesn't do a great job at like introducing you to these plot. All of this information comes at like the last 5 minutes of the episode. But we do get this really beautiful moment where River, and now that she knows that the 12th Doctor is the Doctor, they do have this kind of love and relationship, and River kind of realizes that she does love the Doctor and the Doctor does love her. And this all culminates into the moment when they both realize this will be their final night. This will be their last night together in a romantic non-adventure, or at least from River's perspective, this is the last time they will ever meet. Only that, this is the night, the last date. Only for the Doctor to reveal that the night here lasts 25 years, I believe he says. Meaning that the date lasts for 25 years, and that's just, and when River Song realizes that Alex Kingston's face and she's kind of can't control her emotions on it, it's just a powerful moment, and that ends our story, The Husbands of River Song. Overall, I think this is kind of a mixed bag. There's a lot of stuff here I really like, I really enjoy, but there's also a lot of stuff here that I don't like, and I don't think really work very well. Some of the humor really just isn't that great, and some of the humor actually really works, and it's and whenever it plays on the Doctor basically playing this companion role or being part of the scenario, shall we say, I think that's where the humor really is at its strongest. But The rest of it, I think, is pretty weak. I feel like the story is really jagged, broken into like three moments which don't really coalesce with each other in terms of a narrative point. We have the little village and the spaceship with Hydroflax. We have the restaurant bit in the middle, and then we have Beryllium at the end of the story. And I don't feel like they kind of mix very well. However, separately, or at least the last two, do have a very strong feat in terms of narrative. It's just that they don't click well with each other, and the whole thing feels muddled and cluttered. But if you want to watch the story because it has the 12th Doctor with River Song, highly recommended for that. Very great characters. I really like seeing the 12th Doctor interact with River Song and vice versa. But if you're looking for a really great story, something to grit your teeth in terms of narrative, I think you're better looking somewhere else. I think the story does fail in that regard. So anyway, that is The Husbands of River Song. So join me next time where we will be going back to Coal Hill School as there's a mysterious force which has taken over one of the school teachers. So join me next time for The Coach with the Dragon Tattoo. And I'll see you next time on the Doctor Who Marathon. Ta-ra!